Hey everyone, this is Taylor Lewis with the Pulmonary Performance Institute, and today I want to kind of discuss a question that's been asked multiple times: is strength training for cystic fibrosis and COPD, kind of what things can be different from the standpoint of someone battling lung disease. But one thing I first want to talk about is the importance of strength training. Strength training has shown to reduce hospital visits. It increases muscular mass so that when you move, your exercise performance can increase. Muscles connect to tendons, which connect to bones, so the stronger your muscles are, easier it's going to be able to move and be able to move things through daily tasks. So these are things to think about when we're talking about integrating strength training. Strength training is very powerful for everyone. Now, programming it is going to be a little bit differently. So the American College of Sports Medicine has recommendations on what we call this muscle hypertrophy. This is kind of where you're trying to gain muscle size. And there's going to be a little bit of variance with everything, so take this all with a grain of salt because there is sometimes gray areas depending on what we're looking at here. So when we're thinking muscle building and muscle gains, when you're doing an exercise, you're thinking anywhere from 1 to 6 sets, okay? If you're a novice, start off 1 to 2 sets, and then as you build, you integrate more sets into your routine. One reason why is multiple sets, especially in the beginning of strength training, is going to create some soreness, and you're going to want a recovery. So key too here is in between workout, you want to make sure there's a day off between when you target that muscle. So if it's the quads on a Monday, you don't necessarily want to work the quads on a Tuesday, and depending on how sore you are, you may take Wednesday off as well. And that kind of goes into the frequency of strength training. Now, we're looking anywhere from 8 to 12 repetitions here. So this is kind of that window of where research has shown that this is where you're going to kind of build some strength and some size from that kind of hypertrophy standpoint. However, there is always a little bit of a gray area. If it's, 6 to 7 repetitions, it's not going to say you're not going to build mass. So this is a general 8 to 12 repetitions per set that you do. From there, here's a big key is the 70 to 85% of your 1 rep max. Now you can go online and try and find what your 1 rep max is, and a 1 rep max is something where, say if I was to do a back squat and I did 100 pounds for 1 repetition, that's all I could do, that'd be my 1 rep max. Well, when you're looking at muscle hypertrophy, we want to think we're going to take 70 to 85% of your 1 rep max. So if your 1 rep max is 100 pounds, then if you started at 70%, you do 70 pounds for 1 to 6 sets, anywhere from 8 to 12 repetitions. So this is the key. We want to really live in the 75 to 85%. Now, if you have cystic fibrosis or COPD, and we're start to integrating the lung capacity component to it and the energy development, there's sometimes a little bit of a decreased lung capacity. So this 70-85% may be on one exercise, but it may be not on another. So for instance, deadlifting, that uses multiple joints, it uses multiple muscles, and sometimes you may not be able to get to your 70 to 85% of your 1 rep max for 12 repetitions because your heart rate's increased, your lung capacity's decreased, so there is going to be a little bit more stress on the system, which is fine. So maybe a deadlift, you're going to have to go down a little bit percentage-wise, but if you go to the gym and you do a seated leg extension working on the quads, you're going to be able to potentially get up to that 85% because you're isolating one muscle and you're kind of reducing how many joints that you're using, which means you're going to be able to focus and target one area without your lungs kind of kicking in to shut things down too early and too soon. Now, one thing we talk about from there is once you've done your 12 repetitions, we're thinking, what's my rest period in between? And I wrote this in red because it all depends on everyone. Everything you do in general all depends on the person and who you are and if you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced. However, rest period is very dependent on the type of exercise. Like I said, you're going to need more rest for a deadlift versus a leg extension machine. And also, too, with this rest is it doesn't always have to be the same. So your first set, you may only have 1 minute off because it's the first set of the exercise and you're gonna have a little bit more energy. Well, the second, third, fourth, and if you go up to like 5 sets, you may need a little bit more time. It may turn into 2 minutes and stuff like that. The key is when you're trying to build muscle strength, you're trying to get those gains, you want to bring the heart rate down. And this is kind of the difference between high intensity cardiovascular interval training and strength training. You want a longer recovery because you're trying to exert as much as you can in that set to help kind of take you past that tipping point to kind of rebuild that muscle. So that's key, is sometimes take a little bit longer if you need to. Another thing is the neurological component to it. So when you lift, your brain is sending messengers to your muscles to tell the muscles what to do and what you're trying to accomplish. Now, as that weight or the load increases, that's going to cause a lot more of these what we call neurons to fire to get that muscle to be able to get past that heavy load that you're trying to accomplish. And so that's going to require some recovery as well. So not just from a muscular standpoint, but you also want to think from a neurological standpoint that sometimes you're going to need a little bit more recovery. And it's easy to kind of find out how you can do that is, so say you did, once again, you're doing a back squat at 70% of that 100, that'd be 70 pounds. Say the first set, and you're going for 8 repetitions. Say the first set, you did 8 repetitions and you took a minute off and you were able to repeat that again for another 8 on that second round. Well, if the third round you're at maybe 6 or 7, you can't get to the 8, maybe you want to add 30 seconds to your rest because that body's telling you, hey, I've kind of hit my wall, I can't go any further. So sometimes adding a little bit of rest in between or increasing the rest after each set could help improve that. Now when we talk about how many times should I target these muscles, okay? You want to think anywhere, when you're working strength training, 2 to 6 days of strength training. And we're talking from novice, 2 days a week, you're just starting out, or you're getting back into a routine. So novice doesn't mean that you've never worked out before or done strength training, but maybe you haven't done strength training in like 6 months or maybe a year or a couple of years. You've done it for a while, but you kind of just stop for a little bit and focus maybe on your cardiovascular training. Well, it's always better to start with a couple days a week. And this is more, if you're doing 2 days a week of strength training, you want to think more full body. Full body meaning deadlifting, squatting, stuff that's going to utilize multiple joints. Because since you are only doing 2 days a week, it's going to be hard to attack every muscle or target the bigger muscles if we're not hitting it twice a week, and that's the key. Now, as you start to do more and you're increasing the days at which you're working out, you start to split those up. So if you go to 3 days a week, you may do an upper body day, a lower body day, and then maybe do a full body day to complement everything. So depending on how many days you work will depend on how many times you're going to target that region. So if it's the legs or if it's the upper body. The key though is thinking you want to try and, from a muscle building hypertrophy standpoint, try and target the muscles at least twice a week, 2 to 3 times ideally. And the good thing about this is if you live in that 75 to 85% of your 1 rep max, or 85% of what you have. Once again, this is not set in stone, this is not black and white. There is some variance here, but if you really push it, you can have a longer recovery. So if you're like, I only can work out 2 days a week, Monday, Thursdays are the days I can work out. If you're trying to accomplish this kind of muscle building, which everyone at some point should try to do, then what you do is you go full body workouts that Monday and Thursday. So don't be scared to strength train. That's the key here. Strength training has shown to improve muscle strength, muscle performance, and these carry over to your respiratory muscles or skeletal muscles that can improve. It's been shown to improve lung function, decrease hospital visits, and overall quality of life. And if you just think about it, just daily tasks that you do, your muscles move your joints. Now, the stronger they are, the easier it's going to be on your body, easier it's going to be on your joints, and it's also going to use less energy. So it's going to increase or decrease your fatigue throughout the day. So sometimes it's like, oh, I need to do cardiovascular training because I need to improve lung function, I need to get the lungs and heart going, really improve that cardiovascular component. but they all tie in together. Your muscles work with the cardiovascular system to help get you moving. And if your muscles are not as strong as what you need to complete a task, then you're going to have to use more energy. So if you're not using strength training right now in your routines, try and just integrate a little bit throughout the week and then slowly progress and add. That's a key too here, is try and keep it simple. You don't need to do a lot in the beginning. Just sprinkle it in, find what works, and then keep building from there, because the biggest key is your consistency at which you attack it.